Flower. A flower, sometimes known as a bloom or a blossom, is a reproductive structure found in flowering plants. The biological function of a flower is to facilitate reproduction. Coming to the structure of a typical flower. Basically, it consists of three parts, namely pedicel, then non-accessory organs, namely calyx and corolla, and accessory organs or fertile appendages, namely androecium and gynoecium. So now let us discuss each part separately with any labeled diagrams. A typical angiosperm flower has the following parts: pedicel, receptacle or thalamus or torus, then the non-accessory parts, that is the floral parts, calyx, corolla, then accessory appendages or fertile appendages, namely androecium and gynoecium or pistil. This is the LS of a flower showing all the four different parts. Coming to the pedicel. Pedicel is the stalk of a flower which may be short, long, or even absent sometimes in flowers. Receptacle or thalamus or torus is the swollen or expanded tip of the pedicel which bears the four parts, namely the accessory and non-accessory parts, that is calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. Coming to the first one, that is calyx. Calyx is the first or the outermost protective whorl. Individual member of a calyx is known as sepals, which is usually green in color. So the second one is corolla, which is attractive whorl present in inner to the calyx. Each member of corolla is known as petal. Next is the essential parts, namely the androecium. First one, it is a third of the male whorl. It is a collection of male parts called stamens. Each stamen is a modified leaf or microsporophyll, and it consists of three parts, namely filament, anther and connective. Each anther has two anther lobes, and each lobe usually contains two pollen sacs or microsporangia filled with pollen grains or microspores. The next accessory part is gynoecium or pistil. This is the fourth whorl, and its functional unit is known as carpel. A typical carpel consists of three parts, namely ovary, style and stigma. Ovary is the swollen basal part of the carpel that contains one or more ovules. Each ovule connected to the ovary wall through a special tissue called placenta. Now coming to the structure of anther. A typical anther is bilobed, with each lobe having two theca, which means that they are dithecous. In a cross section, the anther is a four-sided tetragonal structure consisting of four microsporangia located at corners, two in each lobe. Later, the microsporangia develops and becomes pollen sacs, which are packed with pollen grains. This is a TS of anther showing the different parts, namely the outermost epidermis, below epidermis is endothecium, and below that is middle layers, and inner to the middle layer is the tapetum, which is a fertile layer, and inner to that, in an young anther, we come across the sporogenous tissue. TS of anther. The transverse section shows the following. Anther wall. The mature anther consists of the outermost layer, epidermis. Epidermis is a single layered and protective in function. The second layer is endothecium. It is generally single layered with radial thickening, fibrous thickening, and these cells are hygroscopic in nature. The third layer is the middle layers. Usually 2 to 3 layers are present and they are ephemeral and they disintegrate or get crushed during maturity. The tapetum, which is the innermost layer, this is a nutritive tissue present below the middle layer. It is usually single layered and it is rich in reserve food materials. It is polyploidy and serves to provide food materials to the developing sporogenous tissue. The tapetum, on the basis of its behavior, it is divided into two different types, namely amoeboid tapetum and the second one is secretory tapetum. Coming to the structure of this anther cavity. The anther cavity is filled with microspores in young stages or with pollen grains at maturity. The meiotic division of microspore mother cells give rise to microspores which are haploid in nature. Third one is connected. It is a column of sterile tissue surrounded by the anther lobe. It possesses vascular tissue. It also contributes to the inner tapetum. A mature anther. Coming to the mature anther, the transverse section shows two regions, the anther walls and the anther locules. It is four-corner, four-chambered, multicellular body covered by a layer of epidermis. Partition wall between the two pollen sacs or at the place of dehiscence is dissolved. Endothecium middle layers are present below the epidermis. Along the line of dehiscence of each lobe, thin walled cells of endothecium forms the stomium. The cells of middle layers are crushed and many haploid pollen grains or microspores are present in the pollen sac. Thank you.